Hello, friends, and welcome to Your Daily Detroit. It is Wednesday, September 21st, 2022. I'm Jer Stay, sharing what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan. To help me do that, across the table, Cheyenne Nocerini. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am excellent. I got to say, I'm getting ready to go to a event for the Citizens Research Council of Michigan in Lansing later today. I'm very excited about it. It's something where they do a lot of good work. We've had some CRC Michigan people on the show before. Their policy work, their non-partisan policy work, I think is really important in this time. Mm-hmm. So I'm really glad to be able to go up there and get a chance to honor them a bit.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear about your travels once you get back.
Well, as longtime listeners of the show will know, you love policy.
I do love policy.
Starting with a bit more of a serious story, the city of Detroit is filing a federal lawsuit against the U.S. Census Bureau. Now, I watched this announcement yesterday from Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan. This has been an ongoing battle when it comes to the census count. The 2020 census really knocked the city down a peg as far as population, down to like the 639 range. And then this most recent adjustment in 2021 knocked off like another 7,000 or so people. And that is something the mayor is not happy about for a couple of reasons. Number one, you've got the money issue. It's about $5,000 per person in federal aid through various programs that go to Detroit residents. And then the other side is kind of the narrative, right? Is Detroit growing in population or is it not? And Cheyenne, you remember when he made that promise.
I do.
And what did we say when he made that promise? That the city was going to grow under his administration.
We said, I guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah. And we were both a little skeptical because I don't know if any mayor without some very strong changes can make that happen. But regardless, there is now a suit in court. This is where the mayor is contending that there are more addresses from the U.S. Postal Service, contends that there's more service hookups for electric, more service hookups for water and sewage, and he's trying to get the formula for these census estimates. Now, he hasn't sued about 2020 yet because it's still in the appeal process.
Right.
He did say in this press event that he would sue the U.S. Census Bureau if he didn't get what he wanted. For me, of course, I want to see the city doing better. I want to see a growth story. However, time makes me skeptical.
Yes, what happened with this last census? There was a lot of underhanded things going on with the U.S. Census Bureau.
Well, specifically, when we're talking about immigration and citizenship.
Exactly. So, and I also know that there are people who might be undocumented who are afraid to answer their door or to say, hey, I do actually live here.
Well, and response rates were low in the city.
Exactly.
Also, there is some data that by a few percentage points, the census may have undercounted Hispanic and Black communities. I said time makes me skeptical. Here's why. The city of Detroit, as long as I've been alive, has been challenging these censuses. This is not new, right? Like the mayor's saying like, oh, this stuff, this is not new. Not only during my entire adult life have they been doing it. You go back in time, they've been challenging it for 50 years.
True.
Every single time since the beginning that they've been dropping. Now, do I think that it's possible that there have been some miscounts all along? Absolutely, right? The response rates in the city of Detroit are abysmal when it comes to the U.S. Census, as it is often in many poor areas. So, there's formula use, things like that. That's why the mayor's trying to get a hold of that formula. But I also know that none of those challenges in half a century
have come to anything.
Right. The other side is that according to the 2020 challenge, he says that it's unprecedented that the city had that drop, from an estimate to the actual. It's not. Because if you go back to 2009 to 2010, remember that giant drop?
I do remember that giant drop.
And I'm not trying to be negative, but I do think that this is a politically difficult situation and he has to say what he has to say. Because he can't just say it's right. Because if he does that, it will be hundreds of millions of dollars, if not $1.5 billion over 10 years that the city won't get. Now, we're already not exactly in the best budget position. Like, things are better, but it's still kind of perilous. And then there's also the ego thing. I knew when he said that he was going to eat those words, and it wasn't because of him.
We're only responsible for what we can do and we're not responsible for where people move to in or out of the city.
Well, but also you've got structural reforms,
True.
right? And some of those reforms haven't happened. And what that means is that your influx of people moving in is wealthier white people as African Americans continue to flee the city.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really tough narrative to have a discussion about. You know, we're not the people who have a full discussion about that here. But the data, whether you look at Bridge, Michigan in the past, some other things, is pretty clear. I wonder, and this is a bold take, Cotton, if you go through this data, will it look worse than you anticipated? That's also a possibility. And I understand the points he's making, and I want to see what happens in the courts. With some time, 20-year-old me, 22-year-old me is like, oh yeah, get him. Me 20 years later, having been through this a couple of times, I don't know.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens, not only with this lawsuit, but also with the challenge from 2020. And I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
If you've got feedback, dailydetroit@gmail.com.
So, Jer, Southwest Detroit Restaurant Week is coming back September 30th through October 9th.
Ooh.
Yeah. So what I think is a little bit different from Detroit Restaurant Week and other restaurant weeks is for Southwest Detroit Restaurant Week, each restaurant that is involved has a heritage dish that you can order. And each restaurant chooses what it is. If you go on the Southwest Detroit Restaurant Week website, some of the restaurants still haven't listed what that dish is, but it is coming.
Well, many of these restaurants are Mexican restaurants,
Yes.
but the casual observer might not realize that different areas of Mexico have different cuisines.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And so they're going to have different things that are part of their repertoire. And also, there's other than Mexican restaurants in there. But to see something like this could be an opportunity to kind of expand your taste palettes a little bit and get into Southwest Detroit.
Yeah. There's also something new this year. This year, they are doing a food truck rally at Batch Brewing in Corktown.
Now, Batch has gotten a lot of press as of late. They have for a while, but they have been the temporary home for Taqueria El Rey.
Yes.
As they've been shuttered after the fire. Taqueria El Rey has been doing regular pop-ups there, and I feel like this is something that's catching on, and the idea of them doing a food truck rally seems pretty cool. So when is that going to be?
So that is going to be October 3rd, which is a Monday, from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m., and there will also be, in addition to all the food trucks, there will also be a Wayne Health mobile unit. So you can go out and get some health things checked out.
Your vaccine.
You can get your vaccine for 5 and up.
Vaccine and cilantro all in the same place.
But yeah, and then there's also booster shots, flu shots, blood pressure screenings, all kinds of fun stuff.
Well, I like the idea of more food truck rallies.
Exactly.
I think that would be something to see more of in Detroit, whether it's downtown Detroit or the rest of the region. I love the concept of food truck rally. In part, it's because I'm addicted, and Engineer Randy makes fun of me for this. I'm addicted to the Great Food Truck Race. I want Tyler Florence to show up. I want the whole thing. I know it's cheesy. I know all that stuff, but it's like Cannonball Run meets Iron Chef.
Yeah.
And I love it. I can't pull myself away from it, even though I will never run a food truck.
No, you know who also used to love that show, Jer? My dad.
Speaking of dads, you know what's closed? My dad's bar.
I know.
On the Grosse Pointe, Detroit border. Many years it's been open, long run. They closed very suddenly last week. Just saw an Instagram story. We followed up about it. We covered it in our newsletter, dailydetroit.substack.com, where we hit a lot of headlines and such. They are demoing it to put in a new development. It's been owned by the Cotton family, which they became billionaires from the sale of Meridian Health.
Yes.
And they are now, all the waiting with the Cotton family, I think it's over. I think now they're springing into action with all the money. You've got Le Boulangerie? I'm going to mess it up, Cheyenne. The bread place. It's a French bread place.
That used to be Cornwall Bakery.
R.I.P. Mueller's potato salad. If any listeners know the recipe to Mueller's potato salad,
I'm so sad.
dailydetroit@gmail.com, because we both grew up on the east side, so we both know this area. It looks like they're going to be doing a new development there, kind of on the Detroit Grosse Pointe border, where the farmers market, that other used to be a bank, then a church. I understand that building wasn't exactly structurally sound.
Probably not.
And so this is the beginning, I think, of the real push. You've got the New Orleans restaurant opening up at Kercheval in Maryland.
Rest in peace, Janet's Lunch.
Right. So what do you think, as somebody who I mean, you really grew up in that area.
Yeah.
What do you think about like the things that are happening?
So I spent a lot of time on that stretch of Kercheval because I lived right down the street. I'm excited to see what is going to happen. It's already been activated. I mean, there's already been things. We've always had restaurants. We used to have cappuccinos way, way back in the day. And then you also have the long stays, right? You have rustic cabins.
Mhm.
You have,
I think for a while it was the last cash bar.
yeah.
I think they take credit cards now.
I mean, and then you have Buscemi's there. You have
Sprout House, which has new owners
Yes.
after decades. You've got the new investment over there with like Red Crown and some stuff.
Yeah.
You know, Grosse Pointe Park is one of the most population dense areas in the region. And I think that there is a frustration among some developers. And I haven't talked to the Cotton family about this, but there is a frustration among some developers about the speed that it takes to get things done in Detroit. And so I think you're seeing some of that money kind of pour into the park and in a major way. And I can't even imagine like some of the changes that I think that are heading for that strip, because it offers, like Royal Oak, like parts of Dearborn, things that are difficult to find in Metro Detroit. And so for that group of people, I think there is a lot of change coming, and the kind of change that can only really be brought, whether you agree with their politics, with any of that stuff, that can only be brought by a billionaire.
They are pouring in a ton of cash. And they are controversial. I mean, they were the ones that were behind the Grosse Pointe Farmers Market that kind of shut off Kercheval.
They now own the Grosse Pointe News, which some left critics don't like the direction it's going. Yeah. Whereas I know other people who like where it's going. Like I'm not here to say like one or the other from my perspective. But there is change happening, and it's something to watch.
It'll be interesting to see these new developments, and I can't wait to try that new Orleans restaurant.
So, of course, your dad did go to the former My Dad's Bar, which was the City Limits.
Yes. He used to spend a lot of time. He used to spend a lot of time at that bar. That and Rustics. So I'm hopeful that the long stay places will still be there and they won't get ran out of town, because that's one of the things that I love about
Or if they go out on their own terms.
Exactly. I know we can't always stick in the nostalgia of things, but last week my best friend and I went to Bricks. First of all, we couldn't get in because they were so busy / understaffed. So we waited for a while. Devin Skillion cut in front of me to get his takeout order. Anyway, that's beside the point. But
are we starting a beef with Devin Skillion? Does he even do beefs?
No, I love him. I was just like, hey, it's Devin Skillion, no problem. I didn't say hi to him or anything, but another person like scooted up next to him to chat with him. And I'm like, leave the guy alone. He's just trying to get his dinner. So then we ended up going to Howlers and Growlers, which is on Charlevoix, right around the corner from where I grew up. And it used to be Sunrise Sunset Bar.
Oh, I have memories from that one.
I do too, but it burnt down and now it's Howlers and Growlers. And while it was great, the food I had was wonderful.
Really? Because I have not been. So quick review.
I had the barbecue pulled pork sandwich and the cheddar jalapeno hush puppies. Phenomenal. Phenomenal. I'm not a beer drinker though, so I just got a club soda and lime, but my best friend enjoyed her beer, and what she got was really good too. She got the cheeseburger and she said it was phenomenal, but I did miss the cowboy boot beer that we could get at Sunrise Sunset.
See, I would love to see some of that like throwback stuff. I like it when they put in a little bit of that throwback of what it was.
Yeah.
And just have that one thing on the menu. Just have 2 boots or whatever, because few people are going to do it.
Can I just get a bacon wrapped cheese filled hot dog that I could have gotten at Sunrise Sunset? Anyway, I digress. I do love that stretch of Kercheval and Grosse Pointe. I do love the Grosse Pointe Park area. It's so walkable. It's so dense. And I have so many great memories of growing up there.
Well, next, we're going to have a little conversation with friend of the show, David Gifford, talking about transportation, how to get down to the auto show this year through transit. Because one of the things we want to share here at Daily Detroit is not just about the story, but understanding the culture of transit, trying to show people different ways to get around town. So here's that conversation with David Gifford. Joining me here in the North End studio, David Gifford. He is the man behind Transit Guide Detroit. Dave, always good to see you.
You too, and it's nice to actually see you in person this time at the studio.
Yeah, it's nice to not be through Zoom/iPhone/technology and actually have a conversation about this. And I wanted to highlight you for a minute because, the auto show is in town. It's a big deal. Thousands upon thousands of people are going to be descending upon Huntington Place and the areas around it because it's a much bigger footprint show this year. Parking's going to be at a premium. And ironically, I know that you may be going there to see vehicles and mobility, but transit might be a great way to either get down there or see some more stuff in greater downtown. And I wanted to make sure people were aware of all of the options because, some of us who've lived downtown for a while or have used the bus know what's out there. I get questions all the time from listeners that are very new to it. And transit culture in Metro Detroit is still very nascent, right, Dave?
Oh, certainly. A lot of people don't know the options when they come downtown. They just know where to park and park nearby and see the place they're trying to go to, and that's about it.
The first thing I would suggest is comfortable shoes are a good thing because some walking around is also a great way to see the city as well, when you're going between places. And there's been a lot of change. You and I were talking off air that you have been providing these kinds of guides since 2018, doing a great service for the community that, frankly, some of our transit agencies have not been doing. And you've seen some change.
Yeah, certainly. Since 2018, we've seen the addition of Mogo Bike Share. We've seen scooters downtown. The Q line was started back then, and the fast bus service is new to the scene as of a couple years ago. People
will say what they will about the Q line, but the fast bus has actually made a lot of progress as far as moving people, hasn't it?
Oh, certainly. Ridership's been way, way up on those lines. Something about transit service that goes from the suburbs to the city 7 days a week, all day, every day is, attracts a lot of people.
And it's pretty reliable, too, as compared to some of the previous options that have been out there.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah. So why don't we kind of walk through this from different perspectives? Let's start wide and kind of zoom in. If you're flying into Detroit Metro, what kind of options do you have?
You can rent a car, so you'll pay that fee. You pay a premium to rent a car here, especially during auto show week. And then when you get downtown, you have to pay to park that car. So while you're walking around the auto show and you're walking around Detroit and seeing all these different things, you're paying to have a car just sitting there, useless, doing nothing. So I don't recommend that option. I do recommend riding the Fast Michigan bus. It picks up at both terminals, and in the McNamara terminal, it arrives at the Air France gate up top. And then at the now the Evans terminal, you can pick that one up at the ground transportation level.
And the Evans terminal used to be the
North terminal.
North terminal. Okay.
The nice thing about the Michigan route is a couple things. There's a whole cluster of hotels. If you weren't able to get a hotel downtown for price or availability, there's a whole cluster of hotels right there at Flynn Drive. So you can hop on there and hop off, go to your hotel, hop on and come down to the auto show. It takes about an hour to get downtown on Michigan Avenue, but you'll see things you never would see from the highway. You're going to miss out on downtown Dearborn. You'll miss out on seeing the Ford campus where the Ford headquarters is, and the drive through Corktown.
And the reality is, when you drive down, you're still going to have the rigmarole of having to park. Where are you going to park? What are you going to do? This will just drop you off right in the middle of the action, especially if you've got a hotel downtown.
Oh, exactly. It stops downtown Washington, right by Huntington Place, so you can walk literally one block to the front door there. Drops you off right in Grand Circus Park outside the David Whitney building, so you can hop off there and go to the hotel, hop on the People Mover, get to your hotel down there, transfer to other transit, and get on from there.
Yeah. So this is through the Fast Bus. Let's talk about the Fast Bus and its different options, because there isn't just one down Michigan Avenue.
The Fast Bus has 3 routes, one on Gratiot, one on Woodward, and one on Michigan Avenue. All 3 reach out about 20 miles into the suburbs. They run all day, every day. There's all kinds of things to do along those routes, places to park, places to stay, hotels, places to eat, things like that. Costs $2. Your ticket is good for 4 hours of unlimited rides. So you can go somewhere and hop right back on and keep going. So you've got 4 hours of unlimited rides. And for $5, you can do 24 hours.
I may as well do the $5, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So if you're anywhere near any one of those 3 areas, that's something where you can just hop on that and just go straight into the city. And it's kind of nice not to have to worry about, like, where does the car go? How much is it going to cost? All that kind of thing. And I know a lot of people on the Woodward corridor, especially, and we are mere blocks from a Woodward fast stop, is that, that Woodward corridor is used a lot. And it's actually really, really busy.
Oh, yeah. So you can use the transit app to plan your routes. And then if you download the DART app, you can use that to pay for your route on there. So you can pay cash or you can use your mobile phone.
That transit app has come in pretty handy for me in the past. Mm-hmm. They've done a lot of upgrades with that over the years, too.
Yeah, it even gives you options if you want to take walk a little bit, take a one bus, and then it might even include bikes, or even you can unlock scooters on there. You can unlock Mogo. You can even use Uber and Lyft through the app.
We'll get to that in a second.
Sure.
I think we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the streetcar circulator that is the Q line.
Mhm.
That won't get you far out of downtown. It'll get you up to as far as Grand Boulevard. But when might you want to use the Q line?
The Q line's great if you're already downtown. Let's say you've already parked and you want to go explore more. You don't want to move your car a whole bunch of times because you want to go to the DIA, you want to go to the library up there, you want to go to the historical museum. You just hop on the Q line. It's free right now. It goes in a straight line. Pretty easy to see the stations. Pretty easy to see when they're coming up and down the line. You can even check it on the transit app.
That even opens up to more restaurants and things too.
Oh, for sure.
You've got everything from Hopcat, you've got the Whitney, you've got Chartreuse, you've got a bunch of stuff like the new Sapino location, Yum Village, Baobab Fair. You got all kinds of stuff where you just hop off and there you go.
And if you go a block to the west to Cass, there's a whole ton of options over there too.
Oh, for sure. And in fact, if you get off near Yum Village, you can go ahead and go to, say, Time Will Tell, or into the Milwaukee Junction neighborhood, see Kiesling, Freya, places that we've talked about before on the show. The Q line may not be the fastest sometimes, but it is a great, reliable connector for that kind of fun stuff. Now, you mentioned a bunch of other services, but one that has been around for years that we must mention is the Venerable People Mover. What role does that play? Because I think some people from outside might be like, well, it rolls in a circle. What can I do with that?
Lots of things. Number one, the People Mover it actually runs through Huntington Place. So you can get on inside the building and that'll take you around the waterfront. It's got incredible views. Take you to the hotels downtown. It'll take you to places to eat. Their website has a really good trip planner on there, so you can go to the People Mover website and plan your trip. It'll even tell you that you can get off here and hop on a bus and go to Corktown or go further Cass Avenue.
You know what? I keep it in my pocket for inclement weather, too.
Mm-hmm.
Like if some storms come in or something comes like that and I need to cut across downtown, that's a really nice thing to have.
Oh, sure. And it's also a great art tour. Every station has its own work of art.
Now, they've been expanding their hours and doing more things lately. And did they also expand their free time?
Yeah, I believe they expanded their free time through the end of the year.
Okay, so that's a couple of free options for you to get around town.
And then Fridays and Saturdays, they're now open till midnight.
That's very useful.
And I believe I heard they're going to be open on Sundays after the auto show starts.
Okay. Well, I hear only bad things happen after midnight, David.
Oh, of course.
Only bad things. Mogo Detroit, the bike share. I remember when it opened and people kept messaging me. The people were going to throw all the bikes in the river and all the other crap that I heard. Of all of the new programs, one could debate that Mogo has been the most successful. Why is that?
It's going really well. They've never had one day where they had no ridership. People are riding these bikes year round, whether it's rainy, whether it's snowy.
Wow, that surprises me.
Mm-hmm. They've also got boost bikes, which are pedal-assisted electric bikes. Those are the black ones that you see at the stations. You can even find those in the transit app. But they're all throughout downtown. They've been expanding. They're now up in the Livernois area and up through southern Oakland County.
The other day, I was visiting Marygrove and I went through Fitzgerald, and lo and behold, there was a Mogo station right at Fitzgerald Park.
Mm-hmm. And they're talking about putting a few on Belle Isle this fall too.
Oh, wow. So you can really connect things together with that. I've always said that Detroit is best by bike. And one of the reasons is its layout. We were set up as like these wheel and spokes, and a lot of our downtown and areas were set up at time of horses and streetcars. It moves a little bit faster than walking, but slower than cars? Horses. It moves a little bit faster than walking, but slower than cars? Bikes. It really helps with the scale of the city to experience it by bike. And I have been a fan of Mogo for many years, and I find them to take really good care of their bikes too.
Oh, yeah. And they've been working on their rates, too, over the years, trying to make sure it's more inclusive. They have rates for out-of-towners. One of the best ones is this $15 for 3 days. That gets you unlimited trips over 3 days of unlimited 60-minute trips.
Perfect for a weekend trip.
So every 60 minutes, you got to bring a bike back to a station, which is plenty enough time to get somewhere and come back.
Now, we cannot forget the DDOT City Bus. The Detroit Department of Transportation provides a lot of service within the city limits. And if you live in the city, one of the things about the map currently is that from pretty much anywhere, you can head downtown very quickly. Like when I stayed in the University District, I could take the Dexter downtown in no time. So that's one positive thing about the DDOT, especially if you live in the city.
Yeah, the DDOT buses actually connect to every happening neighborhood all throughout downtown and around downtown. So you could hop on a bus downtown and get to any of those popular places like Mexican Town, to Corktown, even as far as Dearborn, up the Cass Corridor to Motown Museum. You can get to Eastern Market. You can get across Jefferson. You can even take the Warren bus over to Dearborn for some amazing Middle Eastern food.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm also thinking about ways that people who are in the city could go experience the auto show without as much hassle too,
Oh, exactly. Yeah, you can connect from your neighborhood and right to downtown. Most of them that go to the Rosa Parks Transit Center are just a few blocks away from the action.
Now, this last option, I didn't really think about because I don't go to Ann Arbor that often. I have, of course, occasionally visited, but they have been really working on expanding service between Detroit and Ann Arbor. Can you talk a little bit about that?
As far back as the 2016 RTA plan, there was talk about a commuter train between Detroit and Ann Arbor that would run several times a day. Since that didn't come to pass, the RTA got a grant for a 3-year pilot project for a commuter bus between Detroit and Ann Arbor. So this bus is a nice luxury coach. You can hold several bikes down below. You sit up top, you get a great view of the road. It actually runs on the highway with no stops in between Ann Arbor and Detroit. It goes across 96 to 14, and it comes back across 94. They have the option to switch depending on traffic. If it's backed up, they can just say, hey, we can just take a less busy highway.
Well, it's because they don't have any stops in between.
Exactly.
Nice. Now, that's one I've wanted to check out. How much is it?
It's $8 if you pay right at the bus, if you walk up on it. If you buy in advance, it's $6. There's reduced fares for elderly and disabled for 4, and you can buy like a pack of tickets for like $20 or something like that. It's a better deal.
Wow. I mean, considering gas prices, and especially if you're trying to get to downtown Ann Arbor, right? Because it goes downtown, right?
Yeah, right to the Blake Transit Center.
And then if you need to go other places, Ann Arbor actually has, for its size, pretty built-out transit, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And they just voted to improve their transit millage, so it should get better in the coming years.
Yeah, well, transit millages, they're required to have transit.
Yep, and the Detroit stop's perfect right there in Grand Circus Park on the west end of it, because you can hop on the Q line, the People Mover, GDOT, Smart Bus, grab a Mogo bike.
Yeah, there's a big Mogo. I was going to say there's a big Mogo stop right there.
Yeah, it's a huge transit hub right there.
There's so many great ways to enjoy the auto show, and I really appreciate it. Me, for one, I'm very much looking forward to seeing the giant rubber duck from Jeep. Of all the things, I appreciate the absurdity of that. And it's a great way to go down, see the auto show, see the duck, see everything that's happening. And I really appreciate you spending so much time to develop out this guy, because I think without your work, people wouldn't know where to go.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues with that, where you're standing on the street and you might just see a bus sign and that doesn't really tell you a whole lot where you might be going. Another great thing I want to mention downtown is the Downtown Detroit Partnership has developed these great kiosks that they put everywhere.
They look great.
And you can actually walk up to it, do a search for where you're trying to go, and it'll give you the same options like on Google Maps. You can look up by car, walking, bike, bus, transit. It'll give you all the directions.
Yeah, I know that there is one in Capitol Park specifically, which isn't far at all from Grand Circus Park. You just literally go a block away, and it's right there at the north end of Capitol Park. David Gifford, Transit Guide Detroit. Where can people find all your work?
transitguidedetroit.com or on Twitter and Facebook. The links are all there on the website.
All right, and we are done for today. It's always a trip here on Daily Detroit. A wild trip, one way or another. A surprise food review, talking about all the things happening around town. I did want to mention, and I didn't in the Southwest Detroit segment, but go check out the restaurants on swdetroitrestaurantweek.com. One of my favorites, El Asador, is on there. So I was able to read that while David's interview was playing. And El Asador is a great choice.
My number one choice is Taqueria Mi Pueblo over on Dick's. We go there with our family all the time.
So it's more of a family-friendly option.
It is definitely.
Not that you can't take the family to El Asador, but El Asador is more of a date vibe.
It's one of those places where we go, we bring the kids, it's good food, and it's a lot of fun.
All right, well, thank you so much for listening. Remember, feedback, dailydetroit@gmail.com. If you want to support what we're doing, patreon.com/dailydetroit. It helps us keep this show on the air. With that, I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Cheyenne Serini.
Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around Detroit.